The afternoon was already drawing to a close when Hannah Collins pushed the supermarket door open with her shoulder. Noah, her 8-month-old baby, felt heavy in her left arm, and she held her old purse with her right hand. The store's air conditioning hit her face. It was hot outside, but inside it was too cold. Noah stirred, bothered, and Hannah pulled the thin blanket over him. "Shh, my love," she murmured, kissing his little forehead. "We'll just get the formula, and then we'll leave." She walked slowly down the aisles. Every step ached. She hadn't eaten anything since the morning, only water. Her stomach complained, but she ignored it. It wasn't about her. It never was. Noah began to whine. She knew that sound. Hunger. He was hungry again. Hannah quickened her pace and went straight to the baby section. She picked up the smallest can of powdered formula, the cheapest one. She flipped the label and checked the price. $23. She had $22 on her card. "Maybe it'll work," she whispered to herself. "It has to work." Noah began to cry softly. She swayed her body, trying to calm him, but she knew it wouldn't help. He wanted to eat. The checkout lines were full. They always were at this time. People coming home from work, buying things for dinner, whole families pushing overflowing carts. Hannah joined the line with the can in her hand and Noah in her arms. He was crying louder now. People started to look. She felt every look, every silent judgment. The line moved slowly, very slowly. The baby's cry echoed through the supermarket, and Hannah felt her face burn with shame. When it was finally her turn, she placed the can on the counter and handed her card to the cashier with trembling hands. The cashier swiped the card without looking at her. Beep. Declined. Hannah felt her stomach drop. Could you try again?" she asked, her voice coming out shaky. The cashier sighed and swiped it again. Beep. Declined. "Just one more time, please," Hannah pleaded, feeling the tears sting her eyes. The cashier swiped it for the third time. Beep. Declined. Noah screamed, a loud, desperate cry that cut through the air and echoed throughout the entire store. Hannah squeezed him against her chest, rocking frantically, but he only cried louder. "Ma'am, there are people waiting here," a voice said behind her, impatient. Hannah turned around. A man in a suit was looking at her with irritation. "I know. I'm sorry. She started, but her voice failed. The tears began to fall. "If you don't have the money, get out of line," another person muttered. Hannah felt her face catch fire. Shame, pure shame. She looked at the cashier, desperate. "Please," her voice came out loud, breaking. "I need to buy the formula." The cashier looked away. She didn't say anything. Hannah looked behind her at the people in line. Angry faces, impatient faces. Some turned away. Noah was crying so loudly that Hannah could barely think. She held the baby tighter against her chest, trembling. "Someone," she tried, but her throat constricted. "Please, can someone help me?" Silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Hannah began to sob. Tears were falling freely now. That's when she heard it. "Daddy," a small voice. "Help her, please." Hannah looked to the side, her vision blurred. A little boy with light blue eyes and rosy cheeks was pulling on the sleeve of a tall man next to him. The boy must have been about 6 years old, and he was looking at her with an anguished expression. "Jacob," the man started, but the boy insisted. "Daddy, please," Jacob pleaded. "The baby is crying. He's hungry. Help her." The man looked at Hannah. He was tall, with dark hair and a well-kept beard. He wore jeans and a simple shirt, but there was something about him, something calm, gentle. He didn't say anything. He just approached the register and put his card into the machine. Beep. Approved. Hannah froze. She couldn't believe it. She started, but her voice failed. The man picked up the can of formula and carefully held it out to her. "It's okay," he said, his voice low and without judgment. Hannah took the can with trembling hands, the tears still falling. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you. I don't know how to thank you." The man simply nodded. He didn't make a scene. He didn't ask for anything in return. That's when Noah stopped crying for a second. He stretched out his little hand and grabbed the man's finger. Hannah looked down, surprised. Noah's tiny fingers were wrapped around the stranger's index finger, and he didn't let go. The man looked at the baby. Something softened in his face, something gentle. "Hi, little one," he murmured. Jacob cautiously approached, looking at Noah with sparkling eyes. "He's hungry, isn't he?" he asked, his little voice full of empathy. "Poor thing." Hannah nodded, still unable to speak properly. Jacob reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a blue toy car, small, stained, old, but clearly loved. He held it out to Noah without hesitation. "Here," he said, smiling. "This always calms me down when I'm sad. You can keep it." Hannah's eyes widened. "No, you don't have to. It's okay," Jacob insisted, placing the car in Noah's free hand. "He needs it more than I do right now." Noah grabbed the car. He stopped crying instantly. He just stared at the toy, fascinated, his eyes still wet but full of curiosity. Hannah couldn't hold it in. She began to sob, squeezing Noah against her chest. "Thank you," she repeated, looking at the man and Jacob. "Thank you so much. You don't know how much this means." The man placed his hand on his son's shoulder, with pride in his eyes. "You don't need to thank us," he said simply. "Take good care of him." Hannah nodded, still shaking. She adjusted Noah in her arms, held the can of formula tightly, and took a step back. The people in the line began to move again, as if nothing had happened. But for Hannah, everything had changed. She turned and walked toward the exit, her legs shaky, the shame still burning in her chest. But there was something else there, too. Relief. Gratitude. When she reached the sidewalk, she stopped for a second. The cool afternoon air hit her face. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. She looked back into the supermarket through the window. The man and the boy were already doing their own shopping, talking softly. Jacob looked up at the door and saw her. He waved with a huge smile. Hannah waved back, tears in her eyes, and managed to smile for the first time that day. Then she turned and walked down the street with the baby in her arms, the can of formula pressed tightly against her body and the blue car firmly held in Noah's little hand. She didn't know who those people were. She didn't know their full names, where they came from, or why they had helped. But for an instant, she had felt something she hadn't felt in a very, very long time. Hope. Hannah carefully climbed the old steps of the boarding house. The wood creaked beneath her feet, and she worried that one day one of them would give way. Noah was quiet in her arms, still clutching the blue toy car. The front door was ajar, as always. The lock hadn't worked properly for months. Hannah pushed it open with her shoulder and walked in. The smell of mold hit her immediately, mixed with the smell of old food coming from some room. She breathed through her mouth and followed the narrow corridor to the end. Her room was the last one on the left, the smallest of them all, the cheapest. She turned the key in the lock, at least that one worked, and went inside. The place was tiny. A twin bed pushed against the wall, an old two-door wardrobe, a small table that she used to change Noah, and nothing else. There wasn't even a chair. The walls were thin. She could hear everything from the rooms next door. Conversations, arguments, loud television, sometimes music playing late. The cold seeped in through the cracks of the old window. Hannah had tried to seal it with rags, but it didn't help much. And the humidity crept up the walls. There were dark stains in the corner of the ceiling. She gently placed Noah on the bed. The baby continued to play with the car, running his little hands over the wheels. Hannah took off her sweat-damp coat and hung it on the nail behind the door. Then she went to the wardrobe and opened it. Almost nothing. A half-empty box of crackers, a packet of instant ramen, half a jar of jelly, and now the can of formula she had just managed to get. That was it. She looked at the empty shelves and felt her stomach twist, not just from hunger, well, from hunger too, but mostly from fear. How much longer could she make this last? Hannah took the can of formula and went to the small table. She had a small electric kettle she used for everything. She heated water, prepared the bottle with trembling hands, and tested the temperature on her wrist. "Come, my love," she called to Noah, picking him up. The baby dropped the car and grabbed the bottle with both little hands. He began to suck urgently, his eyes closing in relief. Hannah sat on the bed and watched him. At least Noah was eating. At least he would sleep with a full tummy tonight. She looked at the cabinet again, at the crackers, at the ramen. Her stomach growled loudly. Hannah got up, went to the tiny sink in the corner of the room, and filled a glass with tap water. She drank slowly. Then she filled it again and drank more. It wasn't food, but it filled her up for a while. She went back to the bed and continued holding Noah as he drank. The baby was almost asleep, his eyes heavy. Hannah rested her head against the cold wall and closed her eyes for a second. It had been like this for weeks, months actually. Ever since she found out she was pregnant, everything had fallen apart. Her boyfriend had left. Her family had turned their backs. Her friends had vanished. And the jobs, God, the jobs. She had tried everything. She had gone to every single coffee shop in Oakwood Heights, literally every single one, from the fanciest to the simplest. Sorry, we're not hiring right now. Do you have experience? We'll call you if something comes up. They never called. She had tried restaurants, washing dishes, waiting tables, anything. Same story. Do you have references? We need full availability, including weekends. And who will watch the baby? The shops on Main Street too. Clothes, shoes, cleaning supplies, the pharmacy. Nothing? Even the motel on the edge of town, the trashiest one of them all, which always had that flashing "Help Wanted" sign. When she showed up with Noah in her arms, the manager barely looked at her. Can't do it. Sorry. Hannah squeezed her eyes shut, trying not to cry again. She had cried too much today already. Noah finished his bottle and let out a small burp. She laid him down on the bed on the side closest to the wall, surrounded by pillows so he wouldn't fall. The baby picked up the blue car again and stared at it, fascinated. He spun the wheels, tapped it on the mattress, and brought it to his mouth. And then he laughed, a small, delightful laugh full of pure joy. Hannah felt her chest tighten. It was the first time she had seen Noah so happy all day, the first real joy, all because of an old toy car, a gift from a little boy she didn't even know. She lay down next to him, resting her head on her arm, and just watched. Noah continued playing, completely oblivious to everything, to her hunger, to the cold of the room, to the humidity on the walls, to the sound of the neighbor arguing with someone next door. He only knew he had a new toy, and that he was happy. Hannah reached out and gently stroked his little face. Noah looked up at her and smiled, that toothless smile with his chubby cheeks that melted her heart every time. I'm never going to let you go. Without, she whispered, her voice coming out firm despite everything. I promise, my love. You're never going to be hungry. You're never going to be without anything. I'll find a way. Noah didn't understand. He just kept playing with the car. But Hannah had made a promise, and she was going to keep it, no matter what it cost. She lay there next to her son, watching him play until exhaustion won out. Noah's eyes grew heavy. The car slipped from his little hand, and then he fell asleep. Hannah gently pulled the thin blanket over him and just watched, observing his tiny chest rise and fall, listening to his peaceful breathing. At least Noah was safe. At least he had eaten. At least he was sleeping. She carefully got up so as not to wake him and went to the window. She looked outside. Night had fully fallen. The streets of Oakwood Heights were quiet, a few streetlights, cars passing occasionally. Hannah rested her forehead against the cold glass and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be another day, more job searching, more closed doors, more no's to hear. But she would try again, and again, as many times as necessary, because Noah needed her, and she would never give up. Her stomach growled again, louder this time. Hannah ignored it. She drank more water. She took a deep breath. Everything was going to be fine. It had to be. She looked at the baby sleeping in the bed, holding the blue car even in his sleep, and felt a pang in her chest. That car had been the first kindness anyone had shown them in a long time, and that meant more than the little boy or his father could ever imagine. It meant that there were still good people in the world, and maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Hannah lay down again next to Noah, pulled the blanket over both of them, and closed her eyes. The cold continued to seep in through the window. The noises from the other rooms continued to echo through the thin walls. The smell of mold still hung in the air. But she had Noah. She had this moment. She had that promise, and for tonight, that would have to be enough. Hannah woke up with a pounding on the door. They weren't polite knocks. They were hard, impatient, demanding attention. She slowly opened her eyes, disoriented. Noah was still sleeping beside her, the blue car clutched between his little fingers. The knocking continued. "Miss Collins." The landlady's voice cut through the thin door. "Open this door right now." Hannah quickly got up, her heart racing. She went to the door and opened it just a crack. Mrs. Morrison was there, a woman in her 60s, gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, wrinkled face, and a perpetually bitter expression. "Good morning," Hannah said softly. "There's nothing good about it," Mrs. Morrison replied, crossing her arms. "You're late again." Hannah felt her stomach sink. "I know, Mrs. Morrison. I just need a few more days." "Enough excuses," the woman cut her off. "You have until the end of the afternoon to vacate the room." Hannah felt the world spin. "What? No, please, I have a baby. You don't pay, you leave," Mrs. Morrison said coldly. "You have until 5 this afternoon. If you're not gone, I'm calling the police." "Mrs. Morrison, please, I have nowhere to go." The woman looked at her with no compassion. "You should have thought of that sooner." And she turned her back, walking heavily down the hallway. Hannah stood in the doorway, trembling. She slowly closed the door and leaned against it, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor. Noah started to cry on the bed. Hannah forced herself to get up and went to him. "It's okay, my love," she lied, picking him up. "It's okay." But it wasn't, and she knew it. She spent the morning gathering their things: 2 old cloth bags, Noah's clothes, diapers, the formula, the bottle, her own clothes, the blanket from the bed. She held Noah in her arms, hung the bags over her shoulders, and walked down the stairs. Mrs. Morrison didn't even look up when Hannah passed. Hannah stepped out onto the street. The sky was gray, heavy, threatening rain. She stood on the sidewalk, not knowing where to go. She had no family, no friends, no one. She started walking with no direction, just walking. Noah was quiet in her arms, looking around with curiosity. He didn't understand they were homeless. Hannah felt the first drops. She looked up. The sky was black now, and then the rain came, hard, intense, drenching them in seconds. Hannah started running, shielding Noah as best she could. She saw an awning ahead, a closed store. She ran toward it and took shelter. But it was too late. They were completely soaked. Noah's clothes were stuck to his little body. He started to cry, of discomfort, of cold. Hannah took off her wet coat and tried to wrap Noah in it, but everything was wet. "I'm sorry, my love," she whispered, her tears mixing with the rain. "I'm sorry." Noah was crying loudly now, desperate, shivering from the cold. The blue car slipped from his hand and fell onto the wet ground. Hannah bent down to pick it up, almost falling herself. She managed to grab it and put it back in Noah's hand, but he only cried harder. Hannah leaned against the wall and slid down to sit on the cold ground. She squeezed Noah against her chest, trying to warm him with her own body, but she was trembling too. She was cold too. She had no strength left. This was it. This was the end. That's when she saw the headlights. A car drove slowly down the street, slowing down as it approached the awning. Hannah didn't even lift her head. She didn't have the energy. The car stopped. She heard a door opening, voices muffled by the rain, and then a voice, a child's voice. "Dad, it's her. It's the lady from the grocery store." Hannah slowly lifted her head. Through the rain, she saw the little blond boy, Jacob, his blue eyes wide with worry, his face pressed against the car window. And the man, his father, getting out of the car, opening a large umbrella. "Dad, she's going to get sick," Jacob yelled. "The baby is going to get sick." The man ran to the awning. In seconds, he was in front of Hannah. "Are you okay?" he asked, but he already knew the answer. Hannah tried to answer, but she could only tremble. Noah was crying in her arms, wet, cold, desperate. The man knelt in front of her. "Come with me," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "You're not going to spend the night here." Hannah shook her head, tears falling. I can't." "Yes, you can," he insisted. "Come on, please." "I can't accept charity," Hannah whispered, the shame burning. "This isn't charity," he cut in gently. "It's humanity. Come. He held out his hand. Hannah looked at his hand, then at Noah, crying desperately. Wet, cold, suffering. Need overcame shame. She took his hand. He helped her up, held the umbrella over her and Noah, and picked up the wet bags. Let's go, he said, guiding her to the car. Jacob had opened the back door, reaching out his arms to help. Hannah got in, squeezing Noah against her chest. The baby kept crying. Jacob saw the blue toy car on the ground, soaked and fallen. "The car!" he shouted. Before anyone could stop him, Jacob darted out, grabbed the car from the wet ground, and ran back. He got back into the car completely wet and held the car out to Noah. "Look," he said softly. "It's here. It's okay." Noah stopped crying for a second. He looked at the car, at Jacob, and he took the toy with his trembling hand. Hannah began to sob. She couldn't stop. The man got into the driver's seat, started the car, and turned the heater on full blast. "We're going home," he said, looking at Hannah in the rearview mirror. "You two are going to take a warm bath, eat something, and rest." Hannah wanted to protest, but she was too tired, too cold, too desperate, so she just nodded and closed her eyes. Jacob turned in his seat. "You're going to be okay now," he said with conviction. "My dad takes care of everyone." Hannah didn't answer. She couldn't. But as the car drove through the streets, with the heater warming them, with Noah calming down, with the blue car back in his hand, for the first time in a long time, Hannah felt that maybe things wouldn't end in tragedy. The car stopped in front of a 2-story house, not a mansion, just a nice house with a garden and warm lights in the windows. "We're here," the man said softly. He got out, opened the umbrella, and helped Hannah out with Noah. Jacob ran ahead, opening the house door. Come in, come in." When Hannah stepped inside, the warmth hit her face. Real warmth, comfortable, welcoming. The living room was simple. A large sofa, a TV, shelves with books and photos. Nothing extravagant. Just home. A real home. "Wait here," the man said, disappearing. He returned with large, soft towels. "Here, dry yourselves." Hannah took the towels and started drying. Noah first. The baby was whimpering, tired, hungry. Then Noah started crying again, louder, desperate, hunger. "I need," Hannah started, but the man had already understood. "Formula. Do you have the can?" Hannah nodded, pointing to the wet bags. He found the can and went to the kitchen. "Jacob, stay with them." Jacob sat on the sofa looking at Hannah with those blue eyes full of concern. Hannah continued drying Noah, but he only cried louder. She rocked him, but nothing helped. 3 minutes later, the man returned with the bottle ready, testing the temperature on his wrist. "Here," he said. Hannah took it and offered it to Noah. The baby grabbed it and began to suck urgently. Hannah sat on the sofa, letting out a shaky sigh of relief. "You need to eat something too," the man said. "No, it's fine." Her stomach growled loudly, betraying her. He raised an eyebrow. "Sit there. I'll be right back." "You can't take care of him if you collapse," he said firmly but gently. He went to the kitchen before she could protest. Jacob moved closer. "When I'm hungry, my dad always makes food quickly. He's good at cooking." Hannah managed a small smile. The man returned with a tray, toast, scrambled eggs, and tea. "It's nothing fancy, but it will warm you up." Hannah looked at the food. The smell made her stomach rumble. "Eat," he said softly. "Please, for Noah." Hannah picked up the toast and took a bite. Simple, but the best thing she'd eaten in days. She ate quickly, trying not to look desperate, but she was starving. Noah finished his bottle and burped. Hannah adjusted him in her lap while she continued eating. Jacob picked up the blue car and gave it to Noah. "Here, now it's really yours." Noah grabbed it and put it in his mouth. Hannah finished eating in silence. When she was done, she looked at the man. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." "You don't need to thank me," he replied. "Just rest." Noah was falling asleep in her arms, his eyes heavy. In seconds, he was asleep, finally fed, finally warm. Hannah closed her eyes. The warmth of the house, the full stomach, the baby sleeping peacefully. It felt like a dream. Jacob moved closer, looking at Noah with admiration. "He's so little," Jacob whispered. 8 months, Hannah murmured. "You're a good mom," Jacob said with conviction. "I can tell." Hannah felt tears sting her eyes. "Thank you." Jacob stayed there, sitting next to her, quiet but present, as if protecting them. The man watched from across the room. His eyes moved from Jacob to Hannah to Noah to the blue car. And something changed in his face, something gentle. The house felt different. It wasn't just the warmth. It was something else. Life. There was life there. For the first time in years, since his wife had died, the house felt alive again. "Stay here tonight," he said softly. "Tomorrow we'll see what to do. But today, you stay." Hannah opened her eyes. "I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing," he assured her. "Really?" Hannah had no strength to argue. She had nowhere to go anyway. So she just nodded. And as the rain continued outside, as the warmth surrounded them, as Noah slept peacefully, for the first time in a very long time, 3 broken people began to heal. Together. The days that followed were different. Hannah couldn't leave. Not that night, not the next morning. Caleb insisted she stay until she could get organized, and Hannah, having no options, accepted. But she couldn't just do nothing. The next morning, Caleb found the living room tidy, toys put away, the table clean. "You didn't have to," Caleb said. "I need to feel useful," Hannah replied. And so it began. Hannah helped around the house, organizing, cleaning, cooking. On the second day, she made lunch. When Caleb and Jacob came home, the house smelled like home cooking. "We haven't had food like this in a long time," Jacob said, eyes sparkling. Something passed between Caleb and Hannah, silent gratitude. Jacob started clinging to Hannah. Every morning before school, he'd rush down to see her and Noah. "Can I hold him?" he'd ask. Hannah would settle Noah in Jacob's lap, and the boy would sit carefully, talking softly to the baby. Then one day, Jacob was making faces at Noah, and the baby laughed, a loud, delightful giggle. "He laughed!" Jacob shouted. "Did you see?" Hannah smiled, tears in her eyes. "He likes you!" Caleb heard from the kitchen. When was the last time Jacob had been so happy? He looked into the room, Jacob holding Noah, the baby giggling, Hannah smiling beside them. The house was alive. It wasn't silence anymore. It was laughter, life, family. One night after the children slept, Hannah and Caleb sat in the living room. "Why did you help me that day?" Hannah asked softly. Caleb looked at her. "Because I saw you. I saw the desperation, and I couldn't ignore it." "And why did you let us stay?" "Jacob didn't smile anymore," Caleb said. "Not really. He was polite but dim." He paused. "Then you arrived, and he smiled again. He laughed. He was a kid again." Hannah felt tears burn. "You brought life to this house," Caleb continued. "I didn't realize how empty it was until you came." They looked at each other. Something deeper passed between them, but neither said anything. Not yet. A week later, Caleb had been disappearing every afternoon. "I'm going out," he'd say. "Be back soon." Hannah thought it was work, but it wasn't. One afternoon, Caleb came home with paint on his hands. "Can you come here?" he asked. Hannah followed him upstairs. He stopped at a closed door, a room she'd never entered. "I made something," he said, opening the door. Hannah walked in and froze. The walls were painted soft blue. A toddler mattress with star-patterned sheets, a dresser with baby clothes, diapers organized, a changing area, an armchair, and on the window ledge, the blue toy car. Hannah covered. Her mouth. Tears fell immediately. "Caleb, I wanted to do something for Noah, for you," he said. "It's perfect," Hannah whispered, voice breaking. She turned to him. "Why?" Caleb stepped closer. "Because I don't want you to be guests. I want you here, for real. I want a family." Hannah sobbed. Caleb pulled her into a hug. "Thank you," she whispered. "You deserve it," he said. Then they heard footsteps. "Dad?" Where's Hannah? Jacob appeared and stopped. His eyes widened. Wow, what is this? It's Noah's room, Caleb said. Jacob looked around. Then they're staying? For real? Caleb looked at Hannah. She nodded through tears. They are, Caleb confirmed. Jacob screamed with joy and ran to Hannah. Mom, he shouted, throwing himself into her arms. The world stopped. Jacob, Hannah said softly. You called me, Jacob blushed. I'm sorry, Hannah knelt, holding his face. Don't apologize, never apologize for that. You can if you want to, she whispered. Jacob clung to her. I want to. So badly. Hannah squeezed him tight, sobbing. Caleb watched, his own tears falling. Jacob finally had a mother. Hannah finally had a family. That night, Hannah and Caleb stood in Noah's room. Thank you for giving us a home, Hannah whispered. Thank you for bringing life back, Caleb replied. They looked at each other. Caleb touched her face. May I? Hannah nodded. Caleb kissed her, slow, careful, reverent. It was healing, a promise, a fresh start. When they broke apart, both had tears. Stay, Caleb whispered, as family, as mine. Hannah nodded. Forever, forever, Caleb repeated, smiling. 6 months later, the house was full of life. Jacob running downstairs, Noah babbling, Hannah singing, Caleb with his crooked tie. One Saturday, Jacob pushed Noah around the garden in a stroller. The baby laughed loudly. The blue toy car was tied to the front, a reminder. Hannah watched from the window, happy tears falling. Caleb wrapped his arms around her. Look at them. They're so happy, Hannah whispered. And you? Very, Hannah said. More than I ever thought possible. I love you, she said. I love you too, Caleb replied. Outside, Jacob shouted. Noah giggled, pointing at the sky. The house was full of laughter, light, love, life. Hannah rested her head on Caleb's chest. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for letting yourself be found. They smiled, a smile of peace, completeness, happiness. Outside, the blue car dangled as Jacob pushed faster. Noah shouted with joy. And in that house that was no longer empty, a family was complete, built from broken pieces, but theirs, real, love forever.